In this video I'm going to be talking about Hitler's scientists. This book has about, well, 13 times 30 times 500, 195,000 words, and I'm going to start with page 61 called, well, first let me read you the chapter name so you understand where I'm coming from and where the person who wrote this book, which is John Cornwell, the author of New York Times bestsellers Hitler's Pope. First, it starts with Hitler the scientist, Germany the science mecca, Fritz Haber, the poison gas scientist, the science of racial hygiene, eugenics and psychiatry, chapter 6, physics after the First War, German science survives, the dismissals, engineer and rocketeers, medicine under Hitler, the cancer campaign, geopolitic and Leben Serum, Nazi physics, Himmler's pseudoscience, Dutch mathematic. And that's where we'll be stopping. But it also goes into Fission Mania, World War II, Machines of War, Radar Codes, Copenhagen, Speer and Heinsberg, Hagerlock and Los Alamos, Slave Labor and Dora, The Science of Extermination and Human Experience, The Devil's Chemists, Wonder Weapons, Farm Hall, Heroes, Villains and Fellow Travelers, Scientific Plunder, Nuclear Postures, Uniquely Nazi, Science at War Again. So I'm going to start with page 60. Known to his scientific colleagues as the Gehirnmat Rat, the Gehi-Merat, Privy Councillor Haber was a distinctive figure in the German trenches as he went about poisoning the Allied enemy in 1915. A uniformed academic, Prince Nez, perched on his nose, pockets bulging with papers. Okay, so they talk about, his description. As a German-Jewish author, Alfred Dolben would write, by the end of the conflict, the decisive assault upon mankind now proceed from the drawing boards and the laboratory. So, they're talking about how Otto Hahn, as well as Erwin Madelung and Wilhelm Westphal, were scientists who, and I quote, scientists who calculated injury and kill rates with graphs and equations and employed toxic gases produced by their chemical formula as weapons. We go on to page 66. The Institute, Haber continued to be absorbed by his work on chemical weapons. This is 67 actually. Even after the war, he tried to persuade Koppel, the Institute benefactor, to fund a laboratory for weapons technology as well as a Kaiser Wilhelm Institute for Chemical Warfare. Remember, there's Kaiser Wilhelm Society around 1910 is formed. In Munich, I believe it was. To be directed by himself. 6 million marks were voted to the project, and Fritz Haber, Walther Nernst, and Emil Fischer were made board members in perspective. The Institute of Chemical Warfare was never realized, but after returning from Switzerland, Haber continued working on poison gas despite the restrictions of the Versailles Treaty. So they didn't care about what constitutional rights was, what the legality of it was. They proceeded anyway. We go on to page 111. The quantum revolution, or evolution as Einstein preferred, was taking place against the background of Germany's recent defeat in war, poverty, and political upheaval and fragmentation. In the immediate aftermath of the Great War, Germany had been plunged into crisis, its economic closed to collapse, its alliances in shreds, its military might defeated, its society vulnerable to revolution and civil war. Shamed, oppressed by harsh peace terms at Versailles, impoverished, underfunded, Germany's scientific community was in hard straits. In 1919, the victorious Allied powers had founded the International Research Council, but Germany and Austria, as well as countries that had remained neutral during the conflict, were barred. It goes on to say, German scientists, moreover, were boycotted by many of their foreign peer groups, their applications for visiting professorships rejected, their access to foreign-based symposia denied. And Einstein didn't approve of the bans. So, Anyway, to go on to the next one. The next bookmark. It's just all mess here. Psychiatry and Euthanasia. Okay, from chapter 6, Eugenics and Psychiatry. Another far-reaching effect of World War I had been generally decline in practice and reputation of psychiatry as scientifically respectable discipline, paralleled by the scandal of widespread neglect and mistreatment of mental patients in institutions. The gap between Friedrich Schleiermach's bold, proactive recommendations and reality could not have been more stark. Malnutrition, disease, and neglect reigned in Germany's asylums, culminating in a massive 30% of fatalities in the inmate population during the war years. At the same time, soldiers suffered from shell shock and other effects of trench warfare, were subjected to abusive psychiatric treatments, including the application of punitive electroconvulsive therapy. Matters did not improve in Germany's mental hospitals after the war, as the economic and political crisis deprived mental institutions of funding for the most basic needs. So it goes on to say that idiots had no right to life, he argued, because they lacked the essential qualities that make life sacred. To terminate the life of an idiot, he declared, is not to kill in the commonly accepted legal understanding of the act. So, Alfred Hawk was the one who publicized that in the Leipzig in 1920. So you see what the Nazis are arguing. We go on. You know, our bookmarks are a mess like you wouldn't believe, and I'm just trying to salvage, work from there. But anyway, Jewish doctors, 154. A week after Hitler's rise to power in January 1933, the co-founder of the Nazi Physicians League, Dr. Kurt Clare, wrote to a colleague that Jews and Philo-Semites ought to note that Germans are masters of their own house once more and will control their own destiny. The dismissal of Jewish doctors were numbered some 16% of the medical profession. Began in March with the removal of Jewish officers from national medical associations and local groups. This was followed by the Jewish boycott orchestrated by Goebbels on 1st April, when Jewish-run businesses and professional services, including doctors' clinics, were attacked or put out of bounds. Okay, so it goes on to say a Jewish physician in Munich was arrested on charges of performing illegal abortions and kept in custody for a week. Another welfare physician in Berlin was imprisoned for 9 months, while the Jewish members of the medical profession braced themselves for an anti-Semitic legislation. Contracts were broken, Jewish doctors were forbidden to deputize for non-Jewish colleagues, payments were suspended, and in the province of Bavaria, Jewish doctors were forbidden to work for the public school system. It goes on to say, on the basis, in the province of Baden, membership of Jewish physicians on recognized panels were restricted to the percentage in the population as a whole, deemed to be 1.5. On the basis of questionnaires from April 1913, the government aimed to bar all doctors who had set up practice or had, after 1st August 1914, or had not seen frontline duty or had not lost a father or son in war. So, the military-industrial Jewish complex trader bootlickers they recruited, they kept. Those who thought themselves within the law were obliged to apply for exemption. By early 1939, some 2,600 physicians had been dismissed, their places taken by Aryans. Casual torture, terror, and murder of Jewish doctors continued through the year. Trumped-up charges including the issue of incorrect prescriptions, sexual attacks on women patients, illegal abortions, and embezzlement. Suicide among Jewish doctors became common, but still Jewish physicians continued to practice, partly under the exemptions, partly because patients still valued their professional services. So they're doing sexual assaults on patients, and the patients are still valuing their services the whole time. And they're saying, oh, we love it. This is why, in my analysis of the study, I knew that these people were drugged up, euphoric, in a euphoric state of mind, saying, oh, we love you. That's why my critical psychology got critical of their bitch ass real quick. I do not believe in these other forms of psychology, because they are being practiced by scum who are getting kickbacks from eugenics-based pharmaceutical companies with calculations and graphs of kill rates. You fucking idiots. I go on to my next bookmark, which is page 164 and 165. Do I have enough time? Oh, I'm running over. I gotta breeze through this. So, basically, Psychological Institute has submitted itself to Gleichschaltung, excuse me. So basically there's a Nazi league, and Nazis start infiltrating psychology as well. and I believe the reason why I bookmarked this was actually for 165, the third paragraph. But Kohler's tribulations were far from over. In June of 1935, the Gestapo instructed the university to fire two of his assistants, Karl Dunker and Otto von Lahnstein, for anti-Nazi activities. Kohler's position was now untenable. He again offered his resignation, which was accepted on 6 September, and he departed for the United States to take up a post as visiting professor at Swarthmore College, supported by Rockefeller Foundation grant. So Rockefeller's playing both sides. He's ensuring the Nazis come over. He's supplying, using Standard Oil to give them patents on the certain kind of petrol fuels, and supplying them oil and patents. And he's supplying America with Nazi doctors, playing both sides, making sure the New World Order agenda proceeds as planned, as well as using his secret society plants, like Planck, to try to steer Hitler toward his goal, and use Hitler's passion to further his goal. So, it's important to note that you have Kaiser Wilhelm Institute of Physics, you have Carnegie Institute, you have Rockefeller Foundations as well, and Rockefeller grants. And since I'm actually out of time, I'm going to breeze through my last bookmarks and try to figure out why they did put them there before I deliver them. Okay, page 170, 171. Okay, here we go. The link between cancer and diet was perhaps a consequence of Swiss and German statistics from the middle of the 19th century, which revealed that the cancer of the stomach accounted for more than a third of all incidents of the disease. The gradual reduction of incidence of stomach cancer from the high levels of the First War was most likely a result of an increase in fresh foods and a decline in adulterated foods. Due to modern transportation, many foodstuffs, moreover, have been subject to harmful dye additives to make them appear fresher than they were. I repeat, the gradual reduction of incidence of stomach cancer from the high levels of the First War was most likely a result of an increase in fresh foods. So it was these organic foods that was saving you. They were using the food to get at you, and Rockefeller was granting them grants the whole time, making sure that the war dragged on and the New World Order agenda dragged on the whole time. Now, I end at 198, 199. I'm 3 minutes over, but I'm going to just try to get to this now. Okay, here we go. It must be for the note. Okay, this Hardy made a perceptive comment, which acknowledged the pressures on scientists and mathematicians in time of crisis, while not granting Bieber back the least benefit of the doubt. There are many of us, many English men and many Germans, who said things during the war which were scarcely meant and are sorry to remember now. Anxiety for one's own position. Remember I brought that up earlier in the video series? Dread of falling behind the rising torment of folly. Determination at all costs not to be outdone may be natural, if not particularly heroic excuses. Professor Bieberback's reputation excluded such explanations of his utterance, and I find myself driven to the more uncharitable conclusion that he really believes them true. I have proven it. Thank you.